you have the experience of something, but when you record it, you experience it again, and you also kind of own it in a different way. It becomes part of your psyche in a much stronger way, and eventually it becomes part of your identity.
Welcome to Exploring Mind and Body with Drew Tadia. Drew is an expert in nutrition, fitness, lifestyle, and more. And he wants to help you live a healthier, longer, and more active life. Now here's your host, Drew Tadia.
Welcome to another edition of Nationally Syndicated Exploring Mind and Body. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for tuning in and being a part of our True Form Life community. We're coming at you with a brand new show. We appreciate whether you're listening on terrestrial radio across the country or as a podcast around the world. We certainly wouldn't be here without you. So stick around. We got all that coming up.
This is Exploring Mind and Body. Naturally improve your lifestyle one show at a time with your host, Drew Tadia.
All right, welcome to another edition of Nationally Syndicated Exploring Mind and Body. We're excited to have Nita here with us, so welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. I can't wait for this conversation. Yay.
All right, it's our pleasure. So give us the elevator pitch. Give us a chance to resonate with the audience. Tell us who you are, what you do.
So my name is Nita Sweeney. I am the award-winning author of the running and mental health memoir, Depression Hates a Moving Target, How Running with My Dog Brought Me Back from the Brink, and co-author of the writing journal, You Should Be Writing. I teach creative writing in Central Ohio, but my claim to fame right now is as an accidental mental health advocate, because although I didn't necessarily write the book for that reason, the kind of raw story I shared launched me into the public eye as someone who has bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety, panic attacks, all that stuff, and who talks about it publicly. And I have used running as one of the main tools to manage my symptoms. And so that's what I end up talking about on a lot of the, public places like this that I go.
So what is it like for someone like yourself to deal with that on a regular basis? So you said bipolar, anxiety, and depression, that's all grouped together for you? Right.
They're, varying symptoms that arise. A lot of times I look, quote, normal, just like any other person, but I also struggle. So some days I pop out of bed and think, oh, hey, I've got things to do. This will be great. Other days I open my eyes and think, I just want to roll back over. I don't want to face this, can't do it. So it's a lot of internal dialogue that I don't always have control over. I can manage it after the fact. Once I notice it's going on, I have lots of tools to work with that. But those initial thoughts or those initial body sensations that I wake up with or that might arise during the day for what seems like no reason whatsoever. There's not necessarily a situational component. I mean, there have been other times when there was a situational trigger, but a lot of times it's just biochemical. It just happens. And I've had to learn tools, it's a skill set like building muscles, like training for long races. And I have been successful in doing that. But yeah, on a day-to-day basis, it can be kind of random where I'm not always sure what the day is going to look like.
So, okay, allow me to be devil's advocate here.
Yes, please.
And so what is the difference? I'd imagine there's two different types of people. What's the difference between someone that's unmotivated, let's say, and from day to day, they don't really feel like getting up. They don't really like their job. They don't want to go to work. And then someone that's clinically depressed or deals with anxiety, even bipolar.
Well, I would say that's a spectrum. So I sort of kind of the black and white way of thinking about it doesn't really work for me and hasn't been helpful to most of the people that I talk to about it. The difference for me is if someone's looking at my life from the outside in, they see a woman who lives in a nice suburb, married, good relationship, has work she enjoys, a dog she loves, all those kind of external things. And as a writer, here I am talking to you. Oh my gosh. Lots of things that could be enviable to other people. So on the outside, things look good. It's the inside that's different. So there was a period of time in my life when I had a job that I was really good at and really hated. I was an attorney. I was a partner in a small firm. And there were days where it was just a lack of motivation, poor job fit, those kinds of things. But because I'm predisposed to mental health disorders, that eventually took me down a rabbit hole. It's possible if there had been interventions earlier, I might not have wound up in as serious a situation as I did. I wound up in the hospital. I was suicidal. I came very, very close to taking my life. Now, I'm not saying someone who's just unmotivated would wind up there. That's not always the case. That's always the tricky part. Is this person, does this person just need a kick in the butt, or will that kick in the butt send them further down the rabbit hole? And I think that's the place where a really good coach, a good therapist, that's like the fine line we all kind of tread. Even as an author, I'm not a mental health professional, but people contact me on social media all the time and want to talk about how things that I've done might help them. I'm always very careful to say, I don't know, because I know what worked for me and what didn't work. And I tried a lot of very, self-helpish, motivational strategies that were working for many other people around me, that were so helpful. More structure, more cheerleading or hard talk, tough love kind of things. That just sent me further and further into the emotional hole. So if there's a difference, I think that's probably the biggest thing is, how do you respond to hard talk, tough love? And how do you respond to cheerleading? Because for some people, cheerleading just makes them soft and it doesn't really help. But other people, that's the only way they can stay alive. So I feel like I'm not trying to avoid your question, but I just feel like it's a very slippery question.
Specific to each individual. Sure. So tell me what is bipolar? What does that mean? Or what does that, how does someone behave, if you will, that has been diagnosed with bipolar? Well,
I have bipolar 2. So it's the less intense version. I'm not the kind of person who is going to rack up $100,000 in credit card expenses on, a binge one night on Amazon or something like that. I'm more likely to rack up $10,000, things like that. But it's a matter of degree. And my episodes tend to cycle. They call it rapid cycling because my episodes tend to cycle. So in a particular day, my mood will swing up and down pretty dramatically, but within a short period of time. And then it will pass. Whereas someone who has bipolar 1, their mood will stay manic, high energy, very impulsive, potentially dangerous to themselves for a long period of time, much longer duration. So for me, it's just moods and impulsive actions that change very quickly. So that's kind of the upside of it. How it actually manifests most of the time is in depression. And I wasn't actually diagnosed as bipolar until I think it's been about 10 years, maybe 12 years ago now. But I've been seeing therapists and have been on various medications since 1994. It just always manifested as depression. And the mania or the hypomania feels really good most of the time. And so why would I think that was a problem? Why would I want that to go away? But eventually some of the behaviors became problematic. Arguments with my husband that made no sense whatsoever, acting out with friends, just different things that were a clue that something was amiss. And so I happened to mention some of that to my psychiatrist, actually, and she kind of went, wait a minute, let's back up a little bit. And she started asking me some more directed questions that she'd really just missed. I mean, she had, because so much of the time I would go into her and say, I'm so depressed, I can't get anything done. I can't concentrate. I can't focus. Can you help me with that? And so that's all she saw. That's all she heard from me. I didn't know.
So what were some of the things that helped you? And I understand that our audience is different individuals, but maybe some of our audience can learn some of what worked for you that could possibly work for them.
Absolutely. There are 3 big tools. Again, let me just Two things that I do still have is I'm still on one medication, but that's down from 6, and I still have a therapist, but I don't see her as often. So those two things. So those are the kind of the professional, medical kinds of things that I can't tell you about. Go see the pros. I'm a lawyer and a writer and a meditator. But the 3 things that I can tell you about are writing practice, or some people call it journaling, free writing, but writing as a way not just to create documents or books or things like that, but as a way to process emotions. So that's one thing. The other thing is meditation. I've been meditating for a very long time, and I practice insider mindfulness meditation. You can do that sitting, walking, standing, lying down, but it's basically learning to keep your head where your feet are. So I like to say that I need a daily dose of now. I need a little drop of now during the day. So I had those 2 going on for many years. The piece that really changed everything for me was exercise. And for me, that's running. I started by jogging for 60 seconds down in a secluded area where no one could see me, because I'm a middle-aged woman who was much larger than I am now at the time. And I just need to break a sweat. And so I often ask people who contact me, are you breaking a sweat on a regular basis, a couple times a week? Are you lifting weights? Are you doing yoga? Are you walking around the block? Are you, just doing something to get that heart rate up? That was the missing piece for me that shifted so many things.
So what was the connect for you? Because I think in most cases, people know that exercise helps you reduce stress and it gets the blood flowing and you get endorphins. We could talk about endless benefits.
Right.
But it's really difficult to help people understand, or actually to get them to get to exercise consistently.
Right. They understand, but especially people who are depressed, because what my head said was, I don't have the energy to get dressed, to shower. How is, jogging going to do anything? But what happened was I saw a post from a friend of mine, high school friend, about the same age, about the same size as I was then. And I watched her. She didn't know I was watching her, but I watched her for a while. And eventually something clicked. And I thought, okay, she seems better. If she can do this, I can do this. So I get this question a lot, and it's sort of like a medicine. You have to take your medicine, but you don't want to take it. And I can't give it to someone else. It's not something you can give to someone else. So if you think you're in a place where you ought to be doing whatever, exercise, change your diet, any of that kind of stuff, I started small, 60 seconds, because I thought I can do 60 seconds. Sometimes especially people who are impulsive, will think they need some huge fix, cure. So they'll join the gym. They'll, not that that's a bad thing. They'll hire a coach. Not that that's a bad thing. But then if they can't keep up or do it all right away, or they don't see immediate results, we get really discouraged. And so that's why I think, taking it in tiny little steps, that's what helped me. She wasn't running marathons. I do now, but she still doesn't. She just jogs around the block, and that's enough. That's completely enough. And I will say one thing, pandemic related. I know we try to, make things evergreen. Right now, in our time, we are dealing with so much trauma, shame, pain, extra layer of ugh that we have never felt in our lives. So if you're struggling with any of this, let whatever tiny thing you do be enough. Don't add that extra layer, because that extra layer of shame is, you'll definitely just run the opposite direction. So yeah, tiny little bites, goals, like big goal, tiny little steps, so small you can't fail. I mean, how can you fail to jog for 60 seconds?
So how did you go from 60 seconds to the next level? What was the next little one for you?
I used an interval training plan, and I'm the kind of person who likes gold stars and little check marks. And so I printed off the interval training plan. It was a 9-week plan. It took me 20 weeks to finish the 9-week plan, but I kept at it. I printed it off and taped it on the end of my bookcase where I see it every time I walk into my office. And then every time I would complete the workout, I would make a little check mark. And there were plenty of times, I'm going to talk about my book later because I did write a book about this. There were plenty of times when I failed and thought, well, that's it, I give up. But I also surrounded myself with a community of other people who were training. So now we have these online communities. So if you can find a plan and there's other people that are doing the plan, reach out to the people who have struggled but gotten back on. So, I would see the people who were flying through the plan, no problem. I found that completely discouraging. But if there was somebody who said, oh my gosh, I really struggled with this, but I'm doing it again, I'd contact that person and say, how did you do it? So it was that combination of having the structure and then having a community supportive enough to not add a layer of shame, but also to provide a little bit of accountability. And then eventually, this is a long story we don't have time for, read the book. My sister convinced me to run a 5K. I was a private runner. I didn't run in public. I never run in front of anybody, right? And but this was for a charity very close to her heart and close to mine. And that really changed everything, because then I saw you could be any shape, any size, any age. You could wear not spandex. You could wear cotton. You could actually wear cotton and run. And that's a running joke. And that changed a lot of my perspective about what an athletic person actually looks like and who an athletic person is.
So tell me about the writing aspects and the journaling, and maybe we could help our audience understand the importance of it.
Well, let me actually tie that to exercise, because now I've been writing a very long time. I studied many years with a woman named Natalie Goldberg, who wrote this book, Writing Down the Bones, about writing practice, which is a meditative way to write. But what I did was, when I would go on these runs, these, jogs, I would write up my emotions about it. I would write up things I saw, specific details, how I felt, if I had a pain, my mood, the changes in mood that I perceived, what I wore, all those kinds of things. And so I created a record. And what I know is that you have the experience of something, but when you record it, you experience it again, and you also kind of own it in a different way. It becomes part of your psyche in a much stronger way, and eventually it becomes part of your identity. So I have a regular writing practice unrelated to exercise, but that's a big part where they kind of came together. And then ultimately that really helped me write a book, because I had this whole record of everything I'd done. So, helped with the details.
And so someone that is looking at maybe following your journey, I always feel that there's a repeatable path to success. What would you recommend that they sit down and start? So you, for example, when you was exercise, you started jogging for 60 seconds. How can you start with writing a journal?
10 minutes, timed writings. I actually post a writing topic on 5 different social media channels every day at noon Eastern time. So if you go to the hashtag 10 minutes go, I post just a different writing topic. So set a timer, 10 minutes go. Don't cross out, don't backspace. Just download your thoughts for 10 minutes. Try to throw in some sensory detail. So, not tree, maple, not dog, Labrador retriever. So you get the image. So you're capturing in your mind the image of what you're describing. Just 10 minutes go. Let yourself write the worst junk in the universe. And then later, read it back to yourself. If you can find someone else to read aloud, that's the best thing, is if you can, get somebody else to do this with you, so that you read aloud and no comment. Because what we're trying to do is sidestep that inner critic, that editor that will come in very handy later if you ever want to publish anything. But when you're processing emotions and you're just downloading information, you need to just set that aside. Thank it very much for the way it will be useful later, and ask it to cut you a little slack here while you try this crazy thing this woman you've never heard of suggested.
I read that for the first time. I read that in the book called The Writer's Way.
Yeah, The Artist's Way.
The Artist's Way, sorry.
Julia Cameron. Yeah, she talks about morning pages.
Right.
And what's interesting is Julia Cameron and Natalie Goldberg both lived in Taos, New Mexico at the same time I lived in Taos, New Mexico. So I've studied with both of them. And it's a slightly different. Natalie's a Zen practitioner, a Zen priest, actually, and Julia is much more in the recovery community. But they sort of came to a very similar conclusion from two completely different paths. That the process of writing is a way to, work through emotions, record material. It has many, many usefulness. It's a way to come in touch with yourself, to figure out what you feel, what you think, what you want.
So I got to tell you, I've tried this numerous times. I write myself. I have 3 books and I write blog posts and such. But that morning pages, if you will, or yours is at noon, at least your post.
Well, yeah, it's just when my post is, right?
Okay.
And writing practice, right?
So I've had a really hard time being consistent with that for whatever reason. Do you have any suggestions for people like me that I could sit down and write about a topic, but if it's just like write whatever random thoughts come on paper, it's just really hard for me.
Well, I think that's the difference between writing practice and morning pages. Natalie gives you a topic. I give you a topic because many people are stunned by the blank page. So you take the topic, and I don't know if you know how in meditation, how you have an object. So it might be the breath, it might be a mantra, it might be body sensations other than the breath. And so you always bring your mind back, because minds generate thoughts, but they tend to wander. So we can get frozen thinking, oh my gosh, I have to do this, I have to do this a certain way, or I can't just download, this is crap. It's usually the editor, the inner critic that's going on. So what you do is you have the topic as your object. You just bring your mind back, you write the topic again and go. And you have to give yourself the grace to do it badly, for it to go nowhere, for it to have no purpose. But ultimately, it will go somewhere. You'll find out, your thoughts, your obsessions, your strengths, your wants, your true wishes, things like that.
I've been inspired. I might try again. Maybe my fifth
well, that's
time.
The other thing is, just because you can't do it every day, so maybe you do it, every third Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. And maybe at least start there, and then maybe that increases too.
And if it suits you, and if not, maybe what you're doing isn't broken, you don't need that.
I guess that's a very good point. I guess everyone could use a different modality, if you will, to help heal.
Absolutely. If I had a motto, I think it would be one size does not fit all.
I like that. So the only other one that I would specifically ask you about is meditation. However, we are getting close to the end. Is there anything, I'm asking you this before I usually do, is there anything that you specifically want to mention before we start to wrap things up?
No, I just think gentleness, I just said that. You have to do you. You have to find what works for you. Some people, meditation is the thing. There's as many different types of meditation as there are, I don't know, whatever. There's just a million types of meditation. So finding one, just because you've tried meditation once and it didn't work, doesn't mean it doesn't actually work. It just might be a different kind. So that's all I'd throw out there is, and it's hard. Meditation is not meant to be easy. It's not meant to zone you out and bliss you out. It can, but it's actually hard work to bring your mind back to the now. Sometimes the now sucks. I mean, it does, but sometimes it's really wonderful too.
And then, okay, so for you, just tell us real quick how you got started. And was that, and again, another small increment? How did you get into meditation?
I was dating this guy and he had been practicing Zen for quite a few years. And so one day he said, would you like to sit with me? And I was like, sit with you? I'd like to do lots of things with you. But so what he meant was, by sit, was to meditate. And so he set the microwave timer for 5 minutes. And he said, now just sit still and try not to fidget. And that's where it started. And I married that guy, and 28 years ago, we've been together that long. But at first I was pretty skeptical, mind racing, all that kind of thing. But I also saw that he had a quality beyond the things, you date for. There was something deeper. And I'd heard enough about meditation to know that it was helping a lot of people. And so I just sort of stuck with him, kind of on the kind of on the edges. And he kept inviting me to stuff. I'd go to some, and then some not. And then finally I went to a weekend retreat, just Friday night through Sunday noon, and a silent retreat, which was terrifying to think of not talking and to only have the teacher talking to you for that period of time. It was really scary. And what I was actually scared of was my own thoughts. I didn't know that at the time, but that's what it is, being alone with my head. But it really kind of made a believer out of me. So I've been meditating for a long time now. But start small. All of it. Start small.
Do you two still meditate together?
Yes. It depends on our schedules. We're in kind of still locked down a bit together. He and I are both in the age group where we're trying not to get anything. Not that anybody wants anything. But yeah, we still do. It just depends on our schedules when it works. But yeah.
And how often are you meditating now?
I pretty much meditate every day. I try to meditate 30 minutes every day. Sometimes I can't do that. Sometimes it's 5 minutes, but I always have at least a few moments every day where I slow down enough to just say, okay, Nita, is your head where your feet are? We need your daily dose of now. Where's your head? Where's your head? And then actually feel my body. Often when I run, that happens naturally. Or I'll choose, some days I'll choose to, on a run, I'll choose to see all the colors of, all the shades of green I can. And when my mind wanders, I'll think, oh, that's right, I'm supposed to be looking for green.
How often are you running now?
About 4 times a week. So I'm training for a half right now. I'd love to be training for a full, but it's my energy's just not there right now. I've got a lot of book promotion things going on, and it's kind of hard right now. Just life is just kind of hard right now. So
that's awesome. Okay, so anything, or how can we direct our audience towards your books, to your website, anything? If they want to reach you, how can they do that?
Yeah, NitaSweeney.com. NitaSweeney.com. I also have an email newsletter. You can sign up there with wellness tips. And I have an ebook called 3 Ways to Heal Your Mind, which you can download on my website. I'm on all the social media channels, not all of them, but I'm on, Facebook, Pinterest, LinkedIn. Twitter's probably the one I'm on the most. And then Instagram, of course, too. And I have 2 Facebook groups. One's called Mind, Mood, and Movement, and the other's called The Writer's Mind. So hop in my Facebook groups, and all of that's also on my website. But I love to hear from people. I love when people contact me on any of the sites, and especially when they post pictures of them reading the book. So that's either book, but especially the one that has really changed people's lives. So.
That's awesome. All right, Nita, thank you so much for joining us today on Exploring Mind and Body.
Thank you. It's been great.
All right, that's going to wrap things up for this edition of Exploring Mind and Body. Once again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for tuning in and being a part of our True Form Life community. You can always find us on Facebook.com/TrueFormLife. We post up there a couple times a day on our story. We're always trying to bring you more content around living a healthy lifestyle, whether that be nutrition, fitness, lifestyle, and more. We also have free challenges that we do at least once a month. So if you follow us along there, you'll be able to join maybe a plank challenge or a squat challenge, Tabata challenge, whatever it may be. We'd love to have you join us. We're also on Instagram.com/DrewTadia. Again, we're posting up there a couple times a day along with our story, all dedicated to keeping you fit and healthy and on track. Our main website is TrueFormLife.com. If you want to check out some of our products, some of our services, or if you just want some great content from videos to blog posts and recipes and more, we got all that at TrueFormLife.com. Once again, thank you so much for being here. That's it. That's all I got. I'm out of here. As always, I'm your host, Drew Tadia, in health and fitness for a better world. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Exploring Mind and Body with Trueform Life's Drew Tadia, fitness expert. To find out more about the show, Drew Tadia, or to listen to past shows, visit exploringmindandbody.com.